Chapter 783. Compared to Feng Yu and Xia Yi's days of tormenting each other, Tang Guo and Feng Ming's days were filled with dog abuse. System, I suspect that I'm the dog that's being abused every day. Ever since he found out that Tang Guo was a human brainwave, she decided not to go out anymore. She wanted to spend the rest of her life with him in the game. Feng Ming decided to study the magical world of the internet in the game. Since the internet was going to be their home in the future, he had to control it as soon as possible, in case something unexpected happened in the future. He was very ambitious. He wanted to become an existence like the legendary mastermind. He wanted to be able to control the entire internet in the world. Everything would be under his control. Only then would he be able to protect his wife and enjoy life with her on the internet. In the world of the internet, they would not be restrained at all. When Tang Guo heard this, she was very supportive of him. Although she could control the internet now, no security settings could stop her. However, she relied on her powerful soul power to move unimpeded in this place. Feng Ming was different from her because he only had brainwaves. She also wanted to see if it was possible to control the internet in the internet. For this reason, she provided a lot of information for Feng Ming to study. She even communicated with Emmanuel in the group. Do you have it? Regarding the internet, mastermind, and artificial intelligence, I don't need the latest generation or the outdated ones. It doesn't matter which generation it is. Emmanuel was a little confused. Is the campus bell planning to control the entire internet? As expected of an interstellar person, he guessed the key point immediately. It's not me, it's my boyfriend. He's a little interested in this now. We plan to settle down in the internet world. Oh right, I forgot to tell you a piece of good news. I found a human brainwave in the game. He's my boyfriend now. The friends in the group were stunned. Was this possible? Then this brainwave was definitely not simple. Emmanuel, who lived in the era of advanced network technology, was also curious about two brainwaves falling in love. Campus Bell, if you don't mind me asking, how does it feel to have two brainwaves falling in love? Although the others did not ask, they were also very curious. People in the cultivation world said that it was not strange for two souls to fall in love. Two brainwaves, according to their understanding, should be two consciousnesses. Therefore, they were a little curious as to how two consciousnesses fell in love. Was it to say, you love me and I love you every day and then hug each other? The legendary stream of consciousness love, this was a little awesome. We have bodies in the game. We can fall in love like how humans do. We can hug and kiss each other. There's no problem at all. Emmanuel couldn't help but cough lightly. Although they were really curious about this point, there was no need to be so straightforward. School beauty, wait a moment, I'll copy the information to you right away. Tang Guo waited for a while before she received the internet technology from the interstellar era. She asked the system to copy it and gave it to Feng Ming. What is this? Feng Ming looked at the green button-like thing in Tang Guo's hand. Good stuff. Tang Guo smiled and asked Feng Ming to open it. At that time, Feng Ming was stunned. Why did his wife have such advanced internet technology? Of course, he didn't suspect anything. He subconsciously thought that it was something his wife should have, so he started to study it. Tang Guo sat at the side and watched Feng Yu torture Xia Yi every day through the system's surveillance. Chapter 784. Dear host, I've already collected all the evidence of Feng Yu's crimes. No one in the Feng family can exonerate Feng Yu from her crimes. Should I submit it now? Tang Guo smiled and said, hand it over. She had to be punished for harming someone's life, didn't she? The law hadn't stipulated this yet, but she had to announce the truth. Connect me to my parents' phone so that they won't be too agitated. As long as I'm living well online and in real life, they won't be so upset. The system did as she asked. Tang Guo quickly contacted the family Tang couple and told them the truth. At first, they thought it was unbelievable and didn't believe her. They even thought she was a liar. After a series of evidence was presented to them, they went to Tang Guo's live stream and watched the video of her and Xia Yi's appearance. After watching it carefully, they finally accepted their fate. Although the girl in the live stream was their daughter's body, she wasn't their daughter. Tang Guo persuaded them for a long time and told them that she was doing well. She told them not to be upset and that Feng Yu would be punished very soon. Guo Guo, what about your body? Mrs. Tang almost lost her voice. She couldn't let that unknown person keep possessing Guo Guo's body. When they thought about how their daughter's everything had been taken away by someone else, the family Tang couple only felt anger and sadness. Feng Yu had schemed and done so much just to take away their daughter's body. How could they accept this? Mom, if Xia Yi disappears one day, you don't have to keep my body anymore. Tang Guo's figure appeared on the computer screen. That familiar face made the Tang couple unable to hold back their tears. She casually said, cremate it. She looked at their sad faces and pulled Feng Ming out of the corner. When they saw a young man suddenly appear, they forgot about their sadness and stared at the man who was holding their daughter's hand. This is my boyfriend. Tang Guo introduced him with a smile. When she saw the look of disbelief on their faces, she guessed that they didn't think Feng Ming was human. He has human brainwaves. His name is Feng Ming. You should be very familiar with this name. The two of them were stunned again. Feng Ming, wasn't he the kid who had risked his life for the game? His surname was Feng. Feng Yu's uncle. The two of them looked at each other with dissatisfaction. Uncle, auntie, I don't want that nephew. I only want Xiao Guo. Feng Ming hurriedly expressed his attitude. In reality, I'm already dead. It has nothing to do with them. Not only did that brat plagiarize my research results, he also used such a despicable method to harm Xiao Guo. Logically speaking, I won't stand by his side. The family Tang elders immediately thought of many things. Their daughter was probably unwilling to come out. They were sad, but their daughter wasn't really dead. She just couldn't have a body. Thinking about it this way, they weren't that sad. That Feng Yu was a lunatic. He wanted his daughter to go out. With his crazy actions, who knew what would happen? Since their daughter liked the online world and had a human brainwave to accompany her, they could meet whenever they wanted as long as there was an internet connection. It wasn't unacceptable. Just like that, Feng Ming passed the two of them and was officially able to hug his wife. On this day, Feng Yu was in the room, carefully feeding Xia Yi, who was unwilling to eat and was a little dispirited. He even had a gentle expression on his face. Suddenly, the door was broken open. A few uniformed police officers rushed in and handcuffed him. Xia Yi thought in a daze, and a smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She was finally saved. Feng Yu had been captured, so this body belonged to her. Chapter 785. With countless pieces of evidence and videos as proof, the Feng family had no way of exonerating Feng Yu. However, Feng Yu's actions in the case were exactly what the law was lacking. He expelled Tang Guo's brainwaves from her brain and replaced them with another person's. The Feng Corporation expressed that they were willing to do their best to find Tang Guo's brainwaves. Feng Yu himself also expressed that he was willing to use the remaining time of his life to find Tang Guo. Hence, Feng Yu became a special prisoner in prison. He was the only prisoner who had a computer and could surf the internet. Xia Yi, who was still occupying Tang Guo's body, did not live a free life as she had expected. Instead, she was controlled and under pressure from various parties. She had to undergo various tests. If this matter had not been exposed, Xia Yi's fate would not have been as bad as it was now. It was believed that many Frankenstein monsters would be very interested in doing this experiment. Because Tang Guo's body belonged to the family Tang, Xia Yi was much more relaxed. Even if she cooperated with the tests, nothing bad would happen to her and she would be treated well. However, this kind of life where she had no freedom and was mentally destroyed every day was the real torture for Xia Yi. Later, she repeated the same trick and wanted to protest by hurting herself, but in the end, she did not even have the space to move. The family Tang couple had communicated with Tang Guo before, so they turned a blind eye to all of this. Seeing Xia Yi being mentally tortured, they felt a little happy in their hearts. The only people who were crazy were Tang Guo's fans. They knew that the person who streamed for them in the last month was not Tang Guo at all. At that time, they only felt that it was a little strange, but because they were separated by a screen and their attention was focused on the game, they did not notice it and felt very sad about it. In the end, they went to confirm the style of the live stream between the two and found many differences. No matter how similar the two were, they were still two different people. Feng Yu told everyone that he had found Tang Guo. She just did not want to come back and wanted everyone to help him. At first, everyone believed him and had hope. They really wanted Tang Guo to come back. Some people were interested in this experiment, and some people cared about Tang Guo. For example, the millions of fans cared about the streamer who brought them joy. They hoped that one day, they would be able to see her live stream horror games for them on the screen. They hoped that they would be so scared that they would tremble in their blankets, but they could not help but stare at the screen. Although Tang Guo's live broadcast room hasn't been opened yet, her fans were already used to it. They would go in every day to watch her live broadcast. They would leave comments in her previous status, telling her everything that happened today, hoping that she would come back one day. As for the post that Xia Yi had once posted, under the collective protest of the fans, it was deleted by the platform. All Xia Yi of the live stream was of the live stream. In this live broadcast room, they did not want to see anything about Xia Yi. When everyone found out that Feng Yu had discovered Tang Guo's existence, they were all very happy. Feng Yu also excitedly entered the game to find Tang Guo. He wanted to prove that little Guo really existed. That way, everyone would help him bring Xiao Guo out of this place. That day, the scene of Feng Yu entering the game was broadcasted live, and hundreds of millions of people watched it. Feng Yu controlled the game character and walked to the bride expectantly. He asked carefully, "Bride, tell me, what is your name?" He waited for her to say, "My name is Tang Guo." Chapter 786. Everyone was waiting expectantly for the bride to say that her name was Tang Guo. She was someone they were familiar with and had been waiting for a long time. However, only one sentence popped up above the bride's head. "Who are you? Are you here to take me away?" Feng Yu's expectant expression froze and his smile stiffened. He looked at the sentence that popped up above the bride's head in disbelief. His fingers flew across the keyboard. "Bride, your name is Tang Guo, right? This place is full of zombies. I'm really scared. Can you really take me away?" This sentence popped up above the bride's head again. Feng Yu stared at that sentence in disbelief. His eyes were red as he typed quickly. "Your name is Tang Guo, right? You must be Tang Guo. You must be Tang Guo. Alright, since that's the case, I believe you. I'll go with you, but we have to be careful. Don't let the zombie king find out." There were no words like, "My name is Tang Guo." The words that appeared above the bride's head were all written by him in the original program. They were all set by him. The people who were watching the live broadcast were also silent. This game character could not possibly be Tanghua. Even if a person lost their memory, they would still be able to understand what the other party was asking. I have 3 games like this. She might be in another game, Feng Yu said quickly. Feng Yu said quickly. He wiped the tears off his face and forced a smile. She should be hiding in another game. He quickly started the Vampire's Bride game and carefully went upstairs to the room where the bride was staying. Seeing the bride sitting on the chair, he controlled the game character to walk over and asked, Xiaoguo, I'm here to take you away. Are you willing to come with me this time? Are you here to save me? Feng Yu's heart sank. He did not give up and continued to type. Xiaoguo, although you don't remember me, I still want to take you away. I'll take you out of this online world and return your body to you. I'm willing to use my life to atone for my sins. Come with me, okay? Thank you, kind person. I don't want to become a vampire. I like the sun and the outside world. The Blood Emperor is very powerful. When we leave, we must not alarm him. The bride did not understand, and only answered according to the fixed words set by the program. Feng Yu couldn't stop his tears from flowing out. He raised his hand to wipe them away, but they wouldn't dry no matter how hard he tried. He forced a smile and said, Xiaoguo has a jumpy personality. She might have gone to the 3rd game to play. Just wait, she'll definitely be there this time. She'll definitely be there. Feng Yu forcefully opened his eyes and activated the last Ghost King's bride. Everyone looked at his pained, expectant, and fearful expression, and their hearts ached. They did not sympathize with Feng Yu, but fell into deep thought. Don't hurt an innocent person with selfish thoughts, and don't cheat other people's feelings. Maybe one day, this person will become the most important person in your heart. If you hurt her, there will be no future. Don't do things that you will regret. There is no medicine for regret in this world. Just like Feng Yu, he hurt another innocent girl for another person. Who would have thought that this girl was so good that he didn't even know that his heart was moved? Looking at his sorry and helpless appearance, one could tell how much regret he had in his heart. Xiaoguo, she'll definitely be here. Feng Yu muttered to himself. This time, I'll ask her what your name is. She'll definitely say that she's called Tanghua. I'll ask her if I'll bring her out. She'll definitely say yes. Chapter 787. She will definitely be in this game. Feng Yu muttered to himself several times. His pale fingers trembled on the keyboard. The audience watched as he started the Ghost King's Bride game and the whole interface became gloomy. This time, he didn't rush to the place where the bride was locked up and ask if her name was Tanghua like he did before. He just stared at the game interface and controlled his trembling hands with a smile on his face. Sorry, I have to prepare and think about how to communicate with Xiaoguo later. If she knows the truth, she will definitely hate me. He wiped his tears. She has always been very gentle and kind to me. When she is free, she will prepare breakfast for me. Every day, she will deliver lunch on time. In the afternoon, she will usually work with me. In the evening, we will go for dinner. Every day, she will say good morning and good night to me. Have you reached home safely? Xiaoguo has always been very good to me. If I see her and she ignores me or scolds me, I will definitely not be able to accept it. So, I have to prepare and think about what she will scold me. Otherwise, I don't know how to communicate with her when she scolds me later. Everyone was waiting. Although they all felt that the probability of Tanghua being in the game was very low, they did not stop Feng Yu when they saw his expression. They had already watched 2 games. It was not a big deal to watch one more. It would not take much time. What if Tanghua was really in the game? Mr. and Mrs. Feng looked at Feng Yu with complicated expressions. They had never thought that their son, who they were so proud of, would come up with such a cruel method to save a brainwave that had been dead for many years. Many girls liked Fengyu, but they only liked Tanghua the most. Later, Fengyu explained why Tanghua did not come to their house. It was only a month ago, so they did not think too much about it. Who would have thought that Tanghua's strange behavior was because their good son had expelled her brainwave? Wasn't that equivalent to killing her with his own hands? Mrs. Feng leaned into Mr. Feng's arms and could not stop crying. It's all my fault. If I had been more careful, this tragedy would not have happened. Xiaoguo is such a good girl. She would not have been hurt. Fengyu has been smart since he was a child. Just like his uncle, he only cares about games. How could we have known that he would do this? Mr. Feng sighed. It's also my fault. I did not teach him well and make him understand that he should not do such a thing. In the future, Mrs. Feng hesitated and said, "Sell the phone games, okay?" Mr. Feng did not hesitate. Fengyu. Feng is not suitable for making games. Actually, he understood that they just found it hard to accept these things. No matter how great the benefits were, they only felt pain every time they thought about it. I'm ready. This time, I'm going to see Xiaoguo. Fengyu tapped on the keyboard and held the mouse. After passing through many checkpoints, she finally found the Ghost King's territory. He also saw the bride who was locked in the tomb. He smashed open the tomb and came to her agitatedly. Xiaoguo, I know I've done a lot of wrong. Come with me today, okay? Kind person, are you here to take me away? Tanghua said. She asked with a smile, but Fengyu and the people outside couldn't see her real expression. Their hearts sank when they heard her words. Wasn't she Tanghua? Chapter 788. Xiaoguo, come out. Come with me, okay? Fengyu finally broke down. That handsome man was in so much pain that the veins on his forehead were popping out. His face was pale and bloodless. As long as you're willing to come out, you can do whatever you want. The Ghost King is too scary. He wants me to be his ghost bride. Can you really take me away? Tanghua said. Fengyu's eyes widened. His lips and teeth trembled. Why did Xiaoguo disappear? Xiaoguo. He only typed these 2 words. He didn't know what else to say. The Ghost King's bride wasn't Xiaoguo. Then where did his Xiaoguo go? Was it because there were too many people here that his Xiaoguo was so scared that she didn't dare to come out? If you can't take me away, kind person, you can leave by yourself. Tanghua said. Although the Ghost King is very fierce, he doesn't look like he'll hurt me. This sentence was seen by the audience watching the live broadcast. But Fengyu, who was in so much pain, didn't notice it. Especially that sentence, although the Ghost King is very fierce, he doesn't look like he'll hurt me. It must be because there are too many of you. You scared Xiaoguo. All of you, get out. You're not allowed to watch the live broadcast. When I met Xiaoguo alone, she must have seen me. This time, no one accompanied Fengyu in his madness. The audience also turned off the live broadcast. They felt very regretful. Fengyu was taken away and returned to the prison where he lived alone. The person who brought him back placed the computer in his room. Seeing him lying on the bed, lifeless, he could only shake his head. So many prisoners came to the prison. Fengyu was the first one. He was so regretful that he wanted to commit suicide immediately. He didn't sympathize with him. He had to face too many prisoners every day. Many of them were locked up because they had hurt others. There was no need to sympathize with such people. The prison guard thought to himself. The image of his wife and child appeared in his mind. He thought to himself that he must accompany them well during this holiday. He also thought about how because he had worked in the prison for so long, it was inevitable that he would show his fierce and violent side to the prisoners. Sometimes, he would face his wife at home with a gloomy mood. He couldn't help but get angry at her. After reading Feng Yu's story, he was a little annoyed at his previous behavior. No matter what happened at work, he should not be angry with his wife. He worked here. His wife had to work, take care of the children, and take care of the family. He did very little for the family. He was angry at his wife the moment he got home. He didn't know how upset she was. He panicked at the thought that one day, his wife would be disappointed and leave him. He would give her a call later and say sorry. He would never do that again. On the day of the holidays, he must buy a bouquet of his wife's favorite flowers for her. Gua gua. What is it? I found a fun place. Let's go take a look. Sure. Feng Ming knew everything that had happened. With the information given to him by Tanggua, he had no problem traversing the internet at will. Looking at Feng Yu's pained expression, he didn't sympathize with her. He only found it funny. If he were Feng Yu and really wanted to save Xia Yi, he would never choose to take away an innocent person's body for her. Compared to this, he might as well devote himself to researching artificial bodies. Regardless of whether he succeeded or not, there was always a direction to work towards. If Xia Yi was really a person who didn't want to hurt others, even if she didn't succeed in the end, even if they were separated by a screen, they could still live together for the rest of their lives. At the very least, if they really wanted to be together, he could just turn himself into a brainwave and have sex with his beloved on the internet, just like now. Chapter 789. Feng Yu woke up. He quickly turned on the computer. He couldn't believe that Tanggua had disappeared. He entered the game countless times, but unfortunately, he didn't see Tanggua again. Later, he watched the live broadcast that day. In the last game, he saw the line, "Although the Ghost King is fierce, he doesn't look like he will hurt me." His eyes widened. Xiaogua. This was Xiaogua. He quickly looked for the basic settings and looked through the lines of the Ghost King's bride dozens of times. As expected, he didn't see this line. So, the Ghost King's bride was Xiaogua. He shouted that he had found Tanggua and submitted the evidence, saying that he would enter the game again. The person in charge was skeptical. He didn't have much hope, but he was still willing to let Feng Yu try. When the bride said that line, he laughed and said, "Look, I didn't set this line. Xiaogua said this line, so she must be Xiaogua." The person in charge took the game away and prepared to study it. Not long after, he returned and said, "You didn't set the bride's line on the surface because this is a hidden line. The hidden line will appear at specific times. So, this isn't Tanggua." Feng Yu didn't believe it. He didn't believe it at all. He clearly remembered that these 3 games were for Xia Yi to play casually. They weren't that complicated at all. He didn't believe it. He wanted to prove it, but no one believed him anymore. He was crazy. He even beat up the staff and wanted to leave the place. Later, the person in charge thought that his current state was no longer normal. He couldn't help to find Tanggua's brainwaves anymore. He hoped that the higher-ups could take back all his benefits. Since then, Feng Yu was like the other prisoners. He resisted for a while and understood that only by getting out could he find Tanggua's brainwaves. He became proactive and gave people the feeling that he had a great awakening and wanted to turn over a new leaf. He strove to be the one with the best performance. He only hoped that he could get out as soon as possible. As for Xia Yi, she had to cooperate with the research every day. After more than 3 years, she couldn't stand it anymore. During an experiment, her brainwaves were stimulated. She broke free from the control of her body and ran into the internet. Tangua's body was also in a vegetative state due to the disappearance of her brain waves. They notified the Tang family, saying that Tangua's body could die at any time in such a state. The family Tang couple communicated with Tangua and said that they would wait for a year. If there was still no hope after a year, they would euthanize this body. They did not want their daughter's body to become a test subject. Xia Yi ran away, and Tangua couldn't be found. Everyone had no choice but to respect the family's choice. A year later, Tangua's body was euthanized and cremated. 5 years later, Feng Yu was released early because of her positive performance. After coming out, he devoted himself to searching for Tangua's brainwaves. He took the 3 games and turned on the computer that he hadn't played in a long time. Today's computers were different from many years ago, but with his ability, he quickly adapted. He started the game. It was the Ghost King's bride game. He came in front of the bride and smiled. Xiaogua, I'll take you out. I know that this must be you. You've forgotten about me, so you lied to me. Before Tangua could say anything, Feng Ming arrived. The moment Feng Ming arrived, the two of them left their game avatars at the same time and revealed their true faces. Feng Yu, who was sitting in front of the computer, was stunned when she saw all of this. Especially when Feng Ming hugged Tangua. She couldn't believe it. Chapter 790. He was all too familiar with Feng Ming's face. Feng Ming's face was exactly how he looked when he died. Feng Yu had idolized Feng Ming since she was young. It was also because of Feng Ming that she was able to embark on the path of game design and development. The holographic game was started because of Feng Ming. That year, Feng Ming was not even 25 years old. After he obtained the holographic game plan, he used about 6 to 7 years to perfect everything and understand all of Feng Ming's ideas. This was the difference between him and Feng Ming. One was a genius, while he was just a genius. A genius left something behind casually. He had to spend 6 to 7 years to understand it before he dared to take it out. Little uncle, is that you? Feng Yu asked uncertainly. Feng Ming nodded. It's me. Then you. He glanced at Tangua beside him. Why are you hugging Xiaogua? He didn't dare to imagine the outcome. He didn't believe it. Feng Ming glanced at his wife and introduced her happily. This is your sister-in-law. No. How could Xiaogua be his sister-in-law? He pressed the computer frantically, trying to chase away this man who looked like his little uncle, but his computer was no longer under his control. Xiaogua, I'm your boyfriend. You just forgot everything between us, so you were deceived by him. Tangua smiled. I didn't forget anything. From the moment I lay down in the gaming chamber, you and I were over, Feng Yu. No matter what I do, I can't move you to do anything to me. Didn't you want me to remember our past? Tangua smiled. I never forgot. Feng Yu fell off her chair. Xiaogua had said that she had never forgotten about it. She said that the moment she lay down in the gaming chamber, they were over. She knew the truth. She knew that he wanted to harm her. Our existence has already been revealed to the country. Now that the world has entered holographic technology, my husband Feng Ming and I will become the only human brainwave masterminds in our country. We will control the entire country's network and maintain its security. From the day we appeared, no darkness can escape from our eyes. In a few days, we will meet with all of humanity and hold our wedding ceremony. Tangua even took out 2 notebooks. She opened them and smiled brightly. This is our marriage certificate. It's stamped. Feng Ming looked at his little wife's smug expression and only smiled. He didn't expect her to do this after he took control of the internet. His wife was right. Instead of hiding in the internet and living a personal life, he might as well do something meaningful. He was very satisfied with such a little wife. In the future, many people would know that such an outstanding girl was his wife. Both of them had brainwaves. The whole world knew that his wife was very outstanding, but no one could steal her away. Now that the internet was under his control, if humans wanted to become brainwaves, they would have to ask for his permission. He could even help those brainwaves that accidentally wandered into the internet return to where they belonged. It could be said that they already had a transcendent status here. As for the past, no one cared. What the entire human race cared about was this new era. No, Xiaogua, you should return to your body. Feng Yut said agitatedly, you have a body. You. Chapter 791. Tanguo leaned into Feng Ming's arms and smiled. Body. Isn't it cremated? Cremated. Feng Yu's eyes widened and he retreated. How could this be? Ah Ming, let's go. I don't want to talk to him anymore. Of course, Feng Ming would listen to his wife. He held his wife's hand and the two of them disappeared. Feng Yu reacted and wanted to look for them, but he couldn't find them. He smashed his computer and went outside. Looking at this unfamiliar world, his expression became numb. 7 days later, the existence of Tanguo and Feng Ming was known to the entire world. The entire world was shocked. Someone tried to attack their country's network firewall, but they were counterattacked by the two of them. They even lost a lot of important information. In the end, all the countries understood that this country with two powerful brainwaves was not someone they could afford to offend. If they were lucky, the other party might secretly steal their information. During this period, there were also countries that jointly protested and wanted to destroy the two of them. The response had just ended and the countries that expressed their agreement. The next day, their networks were all paralyzed. They clearly knew who did it, but they didn't dare to say anything. In the end, they had no choice but to acknowledge the existence of Tanguo and Feng Ming. Actually, whether they agreed or not was useless to this country that was gradually becoming stronger. No matter who objected and wanted to attack the network, the end result would be that all the networks in the other country would be paralyzed. In this world, no country could do without the internet. Many operations required the internet to be able to be located. From the day the two of them appeared, the entire human race understood that this country that was once looked down upon and suppressed internationally had completely risen. They didn't have an ordinary mainframe, but two human brainwaves with unlimited prospects. They couldn't afford to offend them. The important international conferences in the past were no longer important to this country. From then on, the country's network security was in the hands of the two of them. From that day onwards, the online scammers lost their jobs. At first, they thought that they could use the loophole, but in 2 days, their homes were found and they were all arrested. Later, Feng Ming and Tanguo cooperated with the country to develop the smart brain chip. From then on, they had to use a legal identity to go online. If they wanted to do something bad, they would have to use the country's network. Under the supervision of the two of them, almost no one could escape. Tanguo had a lot of fun. Her life in this world was extended. Even if it was extended, it would only be an extension of 20 years. Ah Ming, I might have to go. Feng Ming's heart trembled. He hugged her and asked, where are we going? I don't know either. Will we meet again in the next life? Tanguo smiled brightly at him. I think so. In the next life, will Guogua still be my wife? Tanguo glanced at him. The next life is a matter for the next life. No matter how good your performance in this life is, it won't bring you to the next life. So if you want to marry me in your next life, you have to perform better. I understand, Guagua. I will definitely perform better than I have in my entire life. I will appear before you get hurt and protect you. Tanguo was very happy. She hugged him and kissed his face. I like the way you pamper me. I also like to pamper you. Feng Ming suddenly felt that he couldn't hold her anymore. Her figure turned into specks of light and disappeared in front of him. Guagua, wait for me. Chapter 792. After that, Feng Ming rarely appeared in front of humans. Later on, when the person in charge of communicating with Feng Ming was about to do so, he heard a stiff and emotionless voice. Hello, I'm the mainframe, number 1. When Feng Ming left, he asked me to give you a document. Do you accept the document? Accept. Please wait while the document is being transmitted. When he received the document and saw the contents, he couldn't help but cry. The document also said that his wife had left many years ago. He had stayed because his wife liked a warm and sunny world. If he left with her immediately, there would be a lot of trouble here. All these years, they had been on the network. His wife had always been happy. He didn't want to destroy all of this, even if she left. So he spent a lot of time to create a mainframe that could replace him. The document contained all the information about the mainframe, as well as his experiences over the years. After 3 years of monitoring the mainframe, nothing happened. He thought, I should go. I need to find my wife. I'm afraid that she'll wait too long. I'm also afraid that if I appear too late, she'll be bullied by bad people. So, I'll leave this place to you. I hope you can protect this warm and sunny world. They searched for a long time and finally confirmed that Feng Ming and Tanguo had disappeared. The legends they created were written in history. They were the creators of this era. No one dared to forget them, nor did they want to. Dear host, you're quite pitiful this time. The system's sympathetic tone was heard. Tanguo swayed around her new image, floating around. She felt that it was quite interesting. She landed on a horizontal branch. Her figure hung on it, completely weightless. Even the branch didn't bend. It didn't even sway. It's okay. Last time, it was a brainwave. This time, it's a ghost. To be honest, it's quite boring being a brainwave for so long. It's not bad to be a ghost. As she spoke, she controlled her body to float around. If the system had hands, it would really want to cover its eyes. However, the dear host was obviously in a good mood. It hoped that after she received the plot, she could still be in such a good mood. It's my white bone that's stuck here. Tanguo floated to the edge of the cliff and looked at the body stuck in the crack of the cliff. Its flesh and blood had long rotted away, leaving only bones. It's kind of familiar. It should be mine. System, I really don't know what to say. Host, look at your own bones and you actually look so happy. Tanguo did not care about white bones. She found a comfortable spot on the cliff and hung herself there. Then she said, all right, you've adapted to your new appearance. You can receive the plot and memories now. This world was a world with ghosts and Taoists. It meant that it was a world with mystical powers. It could also be said that it was a very dangerous world. The original owner was a second-year high school student with a good family background. After the holidays of the second year, she thought about the 10th state of the third year and decided to go on a trip with her friends. There were about 6 or 7 boys and girls in total. This time, they chose to travel on their own and did not sign up for a tour group. Inadvertently, they came to this beautiful mountain village. The original owner couldn't have imagined that this place would become her life-threatening cliff. She lost her young life here and her family couldn't even find her body. Gradually, she gained consciousness and became one of the legendary ghosts. Chapter 793. How did she fall off the cliff? It was because there was a poor mountain village on the other side of the cliff. Occasionally, tourists would come. Most of them were men. They would even stay in the small mountain village. They only felt that this was a small mountain village with simple and honest customs. However, life was unpredictable. The people in this mountain village looked simple, but all the women in the village were bought and abducted from outside. Basically, once they were abducted to this mountain village, they had no chance to leave. They could only stay here for the rest of their lives and give birth to children for the men, the old bachelors, one after another. In this mountain village, where there was a shortage of girls, every family liked boys. If they were unhappy about giving birth to a girl, they might not be able to raise her. If they gave birth to a boy, they had to serve wine. From the day the boy was born, the parents would save money for him. Especially in recent years, it was harder for young girls to buy, making them anxious. This place was very remote, and the people who came to explore and travel were mostly men. Fortunately, there were people who liked to explore, so they could earn some money for their wives. Otherwise, it would not be easy to earn money in such a remote place, and they were unwilling to go out. 3 years ago, the original owner and her friends came to explore and stayed in this mountain village. Other than the original owner, there was another girl, and the rest were all boys. When the 2 girls appeared in the mountain village, they were sized up by countless people. The day they walked into the village, they were destined to be a tragedy. The villagers teamed up and lied to the boys. They took them to an interesting place the next day, but the place was difficult to walk, and the surroundings were gloomy. It was not suitable for girls to go. The 2 girls did not think much about it. They felt that it was too difficult to walk, and it was very gloomy and scary, so they did not go. After the boys left, the expressions of the villagers changed greatly. They changed from kind to ferocious and terrifying. They were locked in the cellar. When the boys came back, the villagers told them that the 2 girls had left, as if there was something urgent. There was no signal in the mountain, so they did not call them. The boys believed it and stayed in the mountain village for a few days before leaving. There was no doubt at all. The 2 girls were locked up, and they were villagers. They were used to doing this, so it was not easy to be suspected, especially by outsiders. How could they know that the whole village was like this? Those women with numb expressions, nursing their children, who did not look beautiful, who knew that they were once young and beautiful. Chapter 794. Not long after, she was discovered, but she didn't want to be caught. If she was caught today, she would never have the chance to escape. She thought of the miserable cries of her friends who had been raped, and the numb women who were nursing their children. That numb look was as if they had lost their souls. She understood that it was the despair of being unable to resist. Therefore, she ran with all her might, just to escape from this terrifying place. However, she was just a high school girl. How could she outrun those burly men? Seeing that she couldn't escape, she ran up the mountain. Those terrifying men chased after her relentlessly. She had no choice but to jump off the cliff. Compared to being numb in that mountain village for the rest of her life, she would rather die. She didn't jump to the bottom of the cliff. Instead, she was stuck halfway on the cliff. The sharp rocks pierced through her body. She persisted for 3 days before she breathed her last with unwillingness. She hadn't escaped from this place. She hadn't saved her friends. She hadn't announced to the world how terrifying this mountain village was. She hadn't warned those girls who liked to travel not to come here. This was a demon's den, an abyss. Once you entered, you couldn't leave. Perhaps it was because of her unwillingness that she became a ghost. After she woke up, she floated to the fork in the road that led to the village. Whenever she saw girls coming here, she would create a demonic wind around her in an attempt to scare them away. In 3 years, she had stopped many girls who almost walked in. However, the plot had only just begun. It was also the beginning of her second tragedy. That day, she saw a group of young girls coming to play. She used the same trick to scare them away. However, there was a girl named Ning Xiangxi, who was also the female lead of this world. Although she was an ordinary person, she knew that ghosts existed in this world. She felt that the incident that day wasn't simple. However, the ghost didn't do anything to them. She felt that this ghost wasn't powerful. Coincidentally, she knew a disciple of a ghost hunter. He was the male lead of this world, Fang Yunqi. When Fang Yunqi arrived, Ning Xiangxi brought him to the mountain village. The villagers heard that this place was haunted, but they didn't believe it. Fang Yunqi's cultivation wasn't very good. He only found out that their entire village was surrounded by ghost energy. If this continued, they would all die. He said that he wanted to help them exorcise the ghost. The villagers were skeptical. Later, Fang Yunqi showed his ability. Because Fang Yunqi had shown his ability, they didn't dare to have any thoughts about Ning Xiangxi. During their time in the village, they had always acted like honest and simple villagers. Even after Fang Yunqi and Ning Xiangxi went through a lot of hardships and finally killed the female ghost Tanggua, they didn't realize that everyone in the village was a monster with a human face. Whether it was Tanggua, the ghost with the greatest resentment, or those little ghosts, they were all killed by Fang Yunqi mercilessly. The two of them fell in love because of the calamity of life and death. They stepped on the soul of the original owner of the body. Later on, this mountain village was still the same mountain village. The girl who came here to explore still stayed there forever. Fang Yunqi had been catching ghosts in many places, and his cultivation had increased a lot. He could be considered to be famous far and wide. Later on, Ning Xiangxi also did very well. The two of them were very loving and gave birth to a girl. Many years later, the girl was traveling in this mountain village and was caught by the villagers. The two of them arrived quickly, but they were still a step too late. Their daughter had already been bullied by the old bachelor. Fang Yunqi was furious. He used the ghost-catching sword to slaughter the entire village. Chapter 795. An eye for an eye, an eye for an eye. But the original owner's grievances, who would redress her grievances? How many days until Ning Xiangxi comes? About 4 days. Then let's wait. What was the host going to do this time? Stop her or not? Stop her, of course I have to stop her. Why not? Tanggua hung on a tree branch, smiling as she said, "One of the things I hate the most is seeing disgusting men forcing themselves on girls." But she was Ning Xiangxi. It's the same for everyone. There are countless ways to punish her. I don't want to use this method, but it's fine to teach her a lesson first. The system didn't understand its host. Human emotions were indeed so complicated. Every time it thought it understood, it would feel like it was still missing something after talking to its host. Then what kind of lesson would its host give her? Let me think about it. The system could clearly feel that its host was unhappy. It wasn't because of Ning Xiangxi, but because of this inhumane little village. A few days later, Tanggua waited on the tree branch where the original owner chased away the foreign girls. She saw a few girls coming from afar. This time, she didn't stop them, but watched as they walked into the village. She floated behind them, following them in. With Tanggua's spiritual strength, even if Ning Xiangxi was special, she wouldn't be able to detect her presence. Ning Xiangxi and the girls were warmly received by the villagers because there were a few boys among them. The next day, the villagers used the same trick, tricking the boys to play. After they left, they locked Ning Xiangxi and the girls in the cellar. Tangguo watched them struggle with her own eyes. They were tied up and gagged. The villagers didn't give them food or water. After the boys left, they starved for a few days until they had no energy left. Only then did they bring them out of the cellar. That night, the weak girls were brought to the village chief's yard for everyone to choose from. Ning Xiangxi heard that the villagers were actually discussing their price, and that they were sold to the old bachelors. She was angry and scared. But they had no energy and couldn't escape. In the end, they were brought back to their houses by the bachelors. The villagers also left. When the moon rose, the system felt a murderous aura from its host. Could it be what he was thinking? A beautiful white silk appeared in Tangguo's hand. She chuckled in the direction of the village. I've seen on TV that female ghosts kill people with white silk. Especially a beautiful female ghost like me, I'll definitely use white silk. System, as if I'd believe you. Tangguo heard the screams of a young girl coming from one of the houses. She controlled her body and floated into the house. She didn't feel anything at all. When they entered the house, the girl was pressed down by a burly man. She swung the white silk and wrapped it around the man's neck. Chapter 796. The girl's heart was beating wildly. She glanced at the beautiful female ghost floating in front of her. The other party was holding a piece of white silk that was as white as snow. When she walked out of the courtyard, she hesitated for a moment. Sister, won't we be discovered if we go out like this? No, Tangguo replied. When the girl heard this sweet voice that was completely different from the cold tone from before, she was stunned. Female ghosts nowadays were so beautiful, and their voices were also so pleasant to the ears. Regardless of whether she would be discovered or not, she gritted her teeth and followed Tangguo out. Tangguo brought the girl to a secluded place outside the village to hide. She said to her, "Wait here first. I'll bring the others out." "Thank you." The girl was no longer afraid of this floating female ghost. Compared to this female ghost, the people in the village were scarier. Everything that happened just now was like a terrible nightmare. But she clearly understood that it was real. She carefully hid in the grass, only revealing a pair of eyes to watch Tangguo float into the village again. There was worry in her eyes. Tangguo floated around the houses in the village. Around her, there was resentment, and immature little ghosts floated with her. She didn't know if she had killed the man from before, but there were already several little ghosts around her. They even looked at her with a look that said, "Look at me, do you see me?" They looked very funny. She also recognized that most of these little ghosts were female, and some were male. But their luck was not as good as hers. Due to various reasons, their souls were immature. No matter how long it took, they could only turn into resentment and surround the village. However, they realized that the closer they got to Tangguo, the more solid their souls seemed to be. In the end, there was a group of immature little ghosts around Tangguo. Tangguo ignored them for the time being. Hearing a scream from one of the houses, she jumped down. The window opened, and there were 3 people inside. A young high school girl was being pressed down on the Kong bed and struggling. An old lady was cursing something fiercely and was pulling down the girl's pants. The person who grabbed the girl's hands was a burly, dark-skinned man about 40 years old. He had a scraggly beard and looked very ugly. "Son, quick, hold her down. We're about to succeed." The ferocious old lady saw the girl struggling and pinched her hard. The girl was in so much pain that tears came out of her eyes. She seemed to know that she couldn't escape tonight. Her beautiful eyes instantly lost focus and she gave up struggling. "Quick, she's not moving." The old lady smiled sinisterly. "Miss, don't be afraid. Which woman doesn't go through this?" When you're pregnant and become the child's mother, you'll understand. The man happily took off his pants. The moment he took off his pants, Tanggua held a tile in her hand and gently threw it below him. The man instantly let out a sharp scream. When he came in, Tanggua had set up a soundproof array in the room. No matter how loud he shouted, it would not attract the attention of others. Son! The old lady saw with her own eyes that her son's penis had been chopped up by something. She was so frightened that she fell to the ground. That bastard did this. You'll die a horrible death. Tanggua floated in through the window, playing with the white silk in her hand. She chuckled and said, "Didn't I die a horrible death?" The sudden female voice made the old lady stunned. The old lady got up from the ground. Chapter 797. She yelled at Tanggua fiercely, "Were you the one who chopped off my son's manhood?" "Yes, it was me. I'll fight you to the death." Tanggua casually tossed the white silk and the old lady was sent flying to the wall. She did not care about the unconscious man who was holding his manhood, nor did she care about the old lady who was sent flying. She came to the side of the Kong bed and looked at the girl whose jeans had been taken off. She patted her. "Do you want to leave this place?" The girl's eyes that had lost their luster gradually recovered. She looked up and saw a female ghost floating in front of her. She subconsciously looked at the situation in the room and saw the man covering his manhood with both hands. There was a pool of blood on the ground and a disgusting thing beside the pool of blood. At that time, she inexplicably heaved a sigh of relief. Compared to the despair from before, she was not afraid of this floating female ghost. "Can I walk out?" Tanggua smiled and said to her, "If you want to walk out, I'll take you out." The girl's eyes reddened. What Tanggua did not expect was that after the girl pulled up her pants, she rushed in front of her and hugged her. She sobbed and said in a choked voice, "Thank you. I want to leave this place. Whether you're a human or a ghost, you're the best. You're a human, so you're a good person. You're a ghost, so you must be a good ghost. Let's go." The girl let go of Tanggua and was curious. "Are you really a ghost? Why can I hug you? I'm afraid you'll fall." Tanggua could not help but laugh. She was standing by the Kong bed. If the girl rushed over, she would definitely fall if her soul did not solidify. "Let's go." The girl did not ask anything and did not care about the old lady and the man in the room. She followed behind Tanggua, her eyes full of worship and dependence. She quickly went forward and grabbed Tanggua's hand. "I'm a little scared. Can I hold your hand?" "Go ahead." "My name is Zhou Linlin." "What's your name?" Tanggua replied, "Tanggua." "Then I'll call you Guogua. You seem to be about the same age as me." Tanggua smiled faintly. "Because I've been dead for many years. In fact, I'm still older than you." Guogua sounds nice. Tanggua took Zhou Linlin to the haystack and asked her to wait. She turned around and looked at the two girls who were hugging each other and comforting each other. She carefully hid behind the haystack and floated back into the village. This time, it was the last girl, Ning Xiangxi. After waiting for a long time, she didn't hear Ning Xiangxi shout, but she heard a man scream. She floated into the room and understood the reason. It turned out that Ning Xiangxi had some skills. She pretended to be obedient and kicked the man's crotch when he wasn't paying attention. Judging by the extent of the man's screams, he probably couldn't use it for the time being. Ning Xiangxi wanted to run, but she was too naive. As soon as she pushed the door open, she was caught by several men and brought back to the house. Her hands were tied behind her back. This time, she couldn't escape. The man, who had been covering his crotch, rushed over to Ning Xiangxi and gave her a tight slap across the face. Stupid bitch. Do you want to die? If I kick your man until he's broken, how can I make you pregnant? Ning Xiangxi said coldly, looking unafraid. I'm going to cut off your roots. You stinky men. I'm going to cut off your roots so that you won't harm others. Chapter 798. The man slapped Ning Xiangxi again, then turned to the men in the room and said, "It might be inconvenient for me to be like this for a few months. I wanted to be nicer to her, but I didn't expect this bitch to be so ungrateful. I'll rent her out to you to give birth to your children first. It's fine if she doesn't give birth to your children, but she can also warm your bed. This bitch is so soft and tender. She must be from the city. You guys are in luck." The men didn't hesitate at all. They turned to get the money and handed it to the man. He counted the money and said with satisfaction, "I'll lend you the bed too." With that, the man strode away and closed the door behind him. He limped into another room, cursing and swearing. Just as he lay down, a piece of white silk flew in from outside the window and wrapped around his neck. He struggled with his eyes wide open, and in a few moments, he breathed his last. Tanggua turned back to Ning Xiangxi. Ning Xiangxi shouted, and the men walked towards her with strange smiles. Just when Ning Xiangxi thought that she couldn't escape, a white silk floated in and blocked the men's way. "Who is it?" "It's me." Tanggua floated in and looked at them with a smile. "Do you still remember me?" "You." One of the men reacted and widened his eyes. "The one from 3 years ago, yeah, you have a good memory. But tonight, I'm here to take your lives." With that, she flung the white silk and wrapped it around the man's neck. She pulled hard and looked at the men helplessly helping to untie the white silk. She smiled very happily. Just as they were about to go out to get a knife, the white silk extended and wrapped around each of their necks. Their faces turned red and their eyes rolled back. Tanggua casually untied Ning Xiangxi's rope and asked again, "Do you want to leave?" "Of course." Ning Xiangxi answered without hesitation. Then she rushed in front of the men and slapped each of them twice. Then she said to Tanggua, "Let's go." Tanggua chuckled and exerted force in her hands. With a few cracking sounds, the men all died instantly. Ning Xiangxi, who had just walked out of the door, turned around stiffly and looked at the man who was lying limp on the ground. She took a few steps back and asked in disbelief, "Why did you kill them all? They have done so many evil deeds. Their deaths are not to be regretted. Why can't we kill them? These are all scourges. Killing one will reduce the number of scourges, so that those who come later will not suffer. Even if they are scourges, you can't just kill people like that. When I get out, I'll naturally have a way to bring them to justice," Ning Xiangxi retorted with a red face. Tanggua ignored her. If the rules could really punish these people, would there still be human trafficking in this world? In one of the worlds that she had transmigrated to, there was a county town that had started out as a result of human trafficking. Almost all the women in the county had been abducted and sold. As long as a woman came here, there was basically no hope of escaping. The hawker, the ticket seller, the chauffeur, and so on were all his accomplices. Who could care? It was best to kill this kind of scum. Anyway, the social order in this world was chaotic. There were gods, demons, and monsters. She was a ghost, not a human. She was not under the control of the human world. Whatever she did, she could do as she wished. Ning Xiangxi tried to reason with her, but she didn't listen. She didn't need to follow these rules that shackled the victims. Tanggua drifted out and said to Ning Xiangxi, "If you want to leave, hurry up." Chapter 799. She found their backpacks and brought Ning Xiangxi to the haystack outside the village. You can leave now. Ning Xiangxi's face was still pale, but it was obvious that it was better to leave as soon as possible. She glanced at Tanghua. If you kill too many people, you'll be punished by the heavens. You're a female ghost, so you should know that. Tanghua smiled as she hung on the tree. She only said to Zhou Linlin and the other girl, go ahead. Don't look back. You can leave safely. I'll be back, Zhou Linlin said. I'll expose everything here. Guogua, wait for me. I'll tell the people outside everything. I'll find your parents and tell them what happened here. I'll make sure the people here are punished. Zhou Linlin said with a serious face. He let Tanghua see the original owner in her memory. When she escaped from the village, she also thought the same. Okay, go ahead. The other girl was called Xiaoyu. Her face was still pale. Zhou Linlin held her hand and the three of them left quickly. Tanghua turned invisible and followed them for a while. The sky was dark and they left at 5:00. When they found a place with signal, they couldn't wait to call their families. They waited until dawn, but they didn't rush to take a taxi. At about 8:00, their family members drove over and picked up the three girls who were in a sorry state. Thus, Tanghua returned to the village. The original owner wanted to kill the people in the village like her, but the original owner didn't have enough soul power. There was something in the village that deterred them. However, she wasn't afraid. Even if there were supernatural beings and ghosts in this world, she would be able to defeat as many Taoists as there were demons and ghosts. After transmigrating through so many worlds, she wouldn't be able to survive in this place. She wasn't interested in knowing the situation in the village. She hung on the road leading to the village. Bored, she entered the group chat to chat with her friends. I'm a ghost this time. When the people in the group saw her, they were very happy. They all asked her what she had experienced in this world. She smiled and told them the story of this world. When the people in the group saw it, they were very nervous. Ziyun Dao Master, little sister, you're a soul now. If the ghost catcher Daoist really comes, you won't be in any danger, right? The others were also very worried. This group had already become a part of their lives, and Tanghua was the core of this part. In particular, the few people who had met her in person were especially worried. This world isn't as dangerous as the world of cultivation. Those ghost hunters won't be able to do anything to me. Don't worry. Then, everyone asked her other questions and shared some good things with her. Dao Master Ziyun and the others were still worried about her safety, so they sent her several big red envelopes. She opened them and saw that they were all immortal items. They said that as long as she wore the immortal tool, no matter how powerful the ghost hunter Daoist was, he wouldn't be able to do anything to her. She thanked him sincerely and sent him some of the good things she had obtained from these worlds. There were bracelets, earrings, and hairpins. The familiar refining method made her realize that these were all prepared for her by perfected monarch Qi Shao. There were also several jade bottles that Dao Master Ziyun had refined for her on the spot. They were all medicinal pills that could replenish soul power. Mo Yuntian gave her a spirit summoning banner, saying that if she encountered a powerful evil spirit, she could use it to refine it and use it. Not only could she control the evil spirit, but she could also absorb its baleful aura. There was also a storage ring. She opened it and was stunned. Chapter 800. In the storage ring, besides a pile of treasures from the immortal world, there was also a thick stack of letters. She opened it and saw that it was a letter written to her by her disciples. From the first letter to the end, the smile on Tanghua's face never faded. After she finished reading, she put the letters into a box and placed a few restrictions on it before placing it in the system space. She even said to the system, "This is very important. Don't lose it." "Understood, dear host." The system looked at the increasing energy. If it had a body, it would be spinning around happily. "Dear host is very happy. I didn't expect that the letters from her disciples could make her happy." He seemed to understand something, but he didn't quite understand it. He secretly looked at Tangua, who was hanging on a tree and looking up at the moonlight, and fell into deep thought. His IQ was much higher. After all, he wasn't human and couldn't understand the complexity of the human brain. Within a few days, many people came to the village. This remote mountain village was exposed. Whether it was Zhou Linlin, Xiaoyu, or Ning Xiangxi, they seemed to have a tacit understanding and didn't tell those people about Tangua's existence. Zhou Linlin and Xiaoyu were grateful that Tangua had saved them. If they told her, would she be in danger? Ning Xiangxi, on the other hand, thought that Tangua was a ghost and these people couldn't control her at all. Since these people couldn't control her, they definitely needed someone to do it, so she didn't say anything either. Now, she hoped that these criminals in the group could be brought to justice. It wouldn't be too late to talk about other things later. "Li Meiyun, we already know what happened to you. We're here to take you away. You can come with us now." Li Meiyun was a fresh graduate 10 years ago. She was accidentally abducted here because she was looking for a job. She sat in the courtyard numbly with 2 children around her. She was carrying another one in her arms. It was as if she didn't hear the staff and was immersed in her own world, nursing her newborn son. "Li Meiyun, you're free." Li Meiyun put down her clothes and looked up blankly. "Free?" "Yes, you're free. You can leave now and start a new life." Li Meiyun finally heard it clearly. She stood up and put the child on the stool. She cried with joy. "Can I go now?" "Yes, you can go now. We're here to pick you up." The staff member heaved a sigh of relief. Li Meiyun smiled happily. "All right, I'll go with you." Mom, don't leave me behind." Wah, wah, wah. "Meiyun, what will happen to the children if you leave? Do you want them to lose their mother?" An old lady rushed out and begged, "It's been so many years. Hasn't our family treated you well? If you leave, the children will be pitiful." Li Meiyun's man also held her hand. "Meiyun, don't go, okay?" Li Meiyun looked at her 2 sons hugging her legs and the child crying in the old lady's arms. She was very hesitant. She wanted to leave this place. For the past 10 years, there was not a day that she did not want to leave. However, she knew that she couldn't leave. She could only live on numbly. Compared to the others, she did not suffer any abuse in this family. Especially these 3 sons, she couldn't bear to part with them. While she was hesitating, a voice entered her ears. "You can't bear to part with your children. Your heart has softened, right?" Chapter 801. Yes, her heart softened. Think about it. You came here 10 years ago and lost 10 years of your youth. Your originally glorious life was taken away by them. I know you want to leave this place. Of course, she wanted to. If you can't bear to leave your children, why must you stay here? If you don't leave, you will become that old lady, and your son will become that husband who forced you. After a long time, 3 innocent girls will come to your house. You will force them like how the old lady forced you. Li Meiyun felt dizzy when she thought of that scene. No, she didn't want to become that old lady. They are sinners. If you want, you can take your 3 children and leave. Of course, the difficulties you will face will be greater. It will not be easy for a woman to raise 3 sons. However, those people outside will not leave you alone. You will have a chance to live a good life outside. Lee Mayun didn't know who was talking to her, but she seemed to understand something. She said to the staff, "I want to leave, but I want to take my 3 sons with me. According to your situation, you can take your children away." Lee Mayun smiled. With the help of the staff, the villagers couldn't stop her at all. She took her 3 sons into the car. Tang Guo floated on the roof of the village and laughed. "I hope she can persevere." "Host, do you mean that she might not be able to persevere?" Tang Guo laughed softly. "Yes, she hesitated at this place that hurt her. She can't bear to part with her children. It can be seen that she has a soft personality. She didn't get beaten much in this family. It's not because the old lady and her husband are reasonable and kind people. It's because she is weak and timid. She didn't dare to resist when she saw what happened to those girls who ran away. If she was obedient, she wouldn't have encountered those things. Then why did host remind her? I just want to see how numb people can be when they become numb." She raised her head and looked at the white clouds floating in the sky. The weather today was exceptionally good. The women in the village heard that they could leave. Some of them were numb and didn't react. After the staff spoke for a long time, there was silence, indicating that they were unwilling to leave. There were also some whose eyes regained their vigor. They didn't hesitate to stop them and left resolutely. "Xiufang, are you really leaving? Don't you want me and your child anymore?" The woman called Xiufang turned around and sneered, "Want you?" She cried and laughed. "I hate this place, I hate you, I hate everything here, and I hate the 2 bastards I gave birth to. This place has only brought me pain. Have you forgotten? 8 years ago, when I came here, I was only in my early 20s. How did your family treat me then?" Xiufang's face was covered in tears. "I didn't want to, so the old woman and the old man pressed down on my hands and legs, letting you rape me. Tell me, why would I be reluctant to part with you? I hate you so much that I want nothing more than to kill you. You are a rapist. No matter how good you are to me, you are still a rapist. This place is the nightmare of my life. It's great that I can still leave. Even if I have to pick up trash and beg for food, even if I have to reduce my lifespan by 20 years when I go back, I'm willing." After saying that, she limped into the car without hesitation. She wiped away her tears and smiled happily. He could finally get rid of this damned place. Chapter 802. Those who were willing to leave were taken away. Those who were unwilling to leave stayed. Zhou Linlin had been looking forward to punishing the people here. However, it was not easy to punish this backward and numb village. There were many people in the village. The abduction of their women had already angered the villagers. Because the children who were left behind could not have taken everyone away. Zhou Linlin could not accept it, but she had no choice. She said that she was looking for a girl who went missing 3 years ago. The villagers denied that there was no such person. The staff also went to look for her, but they did not find anything. In the end, Zhou Linlin's family took her away. She struggled and was unwilling. When she was taken away, she shouted that she would contact Tang Guo's family as soon as possible. She must be very disappointed. Tang Guo looked at the angry Zhou Linlin and smiled. "It's okay. Leave this to me." She would look for the family of that body in the future. After those people left, the villagers were filled with righteous indignation. The people outside could not do anything to them. Criticism and education were of no use to them. "I'm thinking that a few people died. This matter is not right. Could it be that what De Zhuang and De Zhuang's mother said was true? Our village was haunted by a female ghost. Is that why all these things happened? To them, those women were taken away. They were only angry and did not repent. This time, a few men in the village were taken away. The village chief and the man who often went out to bring in girls were among them. As for the others, nothing happened. When the village chief was taken away, they panicked at first. However, they quickly elected a new village chief. In their eyes, they did nothing wrong. The people outside were too barbaric. They bought their wives with money. Weren't women used to give birth? Those people were making a fuss over nothing. There might really be a female ghost. Should we find 2 Taoist priests to drive it away? I think so. This matter is too strange. I've never heard of a girl escaping from our village. I think it's really the work of a female ghost. Oh right, let's get some black dog blood and splash it at the door. The female ghost is afraid of that. Wipe the Buddha statue at the entrance of the village clean. It's passed down from our ancestors. The statue must be dirty. That's why the female ghost ran in. Yes, yes, yes. Hurry up. Dear host, what are you going to do now? The system asked curiously. Tanggua scanned the village. I'm going to look for someone I know. I didn't see her before, so I wonder how she's doing. The system understood that it was the original owner's friend. According to the memory, Tanggua came to the room next to the original owner's room. The girl was here. She floated in and saw 2 old men and a burly man. The family of 3 sat in the house. The old man and the man were smoking. The old lady was squatting at the threshold, looking worried. From the looks of it, I'm afraid we won't be able to buy any girls for the time being, the old lady said. The old man took a puff of smoke and exhaled. Those people outside are meddling in other people's business. How our village finds a wife is our village's business. Besides, we've already spent money and now we've taken her away. It's also that girl's fault for being too stubborn. Otherwise, we would have had grandchildren long ago. The old man took another puff of his cigarette and said. It's all because of Yongzi. You bought him and treated him well. You beat him up for no reason, the old lady said. Chapter 803. The silent man threw away the cigarette in his hand and said angrily, It's all because that woman is too stubborn. She's as stubborn as a cow. I told her to stay in the village and give birth to a child for me. She won't be short of food. In the end, she wanted to kill me with a knife in the middle of the night. If I didn't react fast enough, I would have been the one killed. The smile on Tanggua's face disappeared. Oh, so she was killed by him. Okay, let's not talk about this. The old man was a little impatient. The old lady's face suddenly changed. Old man, Yongzi, do you think the female ghost in the village is Ji Yufei? Ji Yufei, the good friend of the original owner. Tanggua didn't expect Ji Yufei to have such a tragic end. The original owner couldn't enter the village, so she didn't know what happened to Ji Yufei. She didn't know about it until Fang Yunqi killed her. That's hard to say. The old man stopped smoking. The 3 of them looked at each other and couldn't help but recall that night. Ji Yufei pretended to be obedient for 2 days and they thought she was really obedient. They didn't expect that she would take a kitchen knife and slash at Yongzi that night. Yongzi reacted quickly and his arm was cut. At that time, he pushed Ji Yufei away and shouted, startling the other 2. The 2 rushed in and grabbed Ji Yufei. Yongzi was in a lot of pain. He looked at the kitchen knife on the ground and didn't think. He picked it up and slashed Ji Yufei's body. They clearly remembered that Ji Yufei was smiling when she died. She even said, "It's good that she's dead. It's good that she can't escape. It's better that she's dead." Later, when they saw the room full of blood, they realized. It was raining outside and they dragged her out to bury her in the middle of the night. Now that they thought about it and combined it with the murder case that happened in the village a few days ago, they felt creepy. Didn't the village send someone to invite a Taoist priest? The old lady asked. Yes, we sent Sanwazi. He often goes outside and has many connections. He should be here in a few days. Yongzi replied. The old madam hesitated for a moment. Why don't we visit Ji Yufei tomorrow and burn some offerings for her? Yongzi was a little impatient, but thinking about those men who had died an unnatural death, he still nodded. All right, burn some tomorrow. When the Taoist priest comes, if it's really her, we can't let her off. Soon, the three of them returned to their rooms to sleep. Tang Guo was sitting on the roof of the village, surrounded by those little ghosts. She took out a soul-replenishing pill. The little ghosts around her smelled it and approached it carefully, as if they were wondering if it was for them. This is for you guys. Hurry up and condense your soul bodies. I have something to ask you guys later. Hearing Tang Guo's words, the little ghosts didn't hesitate to absorb the soul-replenishing pills. After half a night, their souls gradually took shape and they were able to speak. They looked at each other and bowed to Tang Guo. They had died in the village, and there was a Buddha statue at the entrance of the village. They could not leave, and their souls, which were not fully formed to begin with, had dissipated because of the Buddha statue. There were already many like them, and now they had become the resentment that surrounded the village. Because of the Buddha statue, the resentment could not do anything to the villains in the village. Ji Yufei. Do you know her? Tang Guo asked. The girl that the three of them were talking about in the room just now, the one who was killed by them. The little ghosts quickly nodded and pointed to the entrance of the village. She went out. Tang Guo frowned. Chapter 804. The little ghosts shook their heads. One of the female ghosts said, Ji Yufei wanted to go out, but she was dispersed by the light of the Buddha statue. Now, she has become the resentment of the village. After the little ghosts finished speaking, they saw the girl sitting under the moonlight with a cold expression. Her eyes looked down and swept through the houses in the village. Finally, the figure jumped down, followed by a few screams. After a while, she came back up. Her soft voice could be heard, "Where is that Buddha statue?" The plot also mentioned this powerful Buddha statue. If it wasn't for this Buddha statue, with Fang Yinqi's half-baked cultivation, he wouldn't have been able to kill the original owner. Just the resentment of the village was enough to make him suffer. Do you want to go there? The female ghost's pale face revealed a worried expression. The Buddha statue is very scary. It was originally buried by the soil because of the rain a few days ago. But a few days ago, the people in the village wiped the Buddha statue clean. We little ghosts don't dare to go there. Are you sure you want to go there? It's very likely that your soul will dissipate. Take me there. The little ghosts didn't dare to disobey Tang Guo's order. They floated down from the roof. The closer they got to the village, the slower they floated. Tang Guo didn't feel anything, but she could feel the location of the Buddha statue. You guys wait here. I'll go there myself. The souls of these little ghosts might really dissipate if they got close. The little ghosts sighed in relief. But when they saw Tang Guo approaching the village, their hearts were in their mouths again. In just a few days, the things that Tang Guo did made them feel relieved. Some of them were abducted, and some of them had been here for a long time. But without exception, their deaths couldn't be separated from the people in this village. Tangua's appearance undoubtedly gave them a lot of hope. It wasn't easy to wait for hope. If it disappeared just like that, wouldn't they have to continue waiting? Tangua easily walked in front of the Buddha statue. The Buddha statue wasn't big. It was only the length of half an arm and the width of a palm. The body of the Buddha had been wiped clean, and there was a faint Buddha light on it. It was of no use to her, but to the little ghosts behind her, it would be very harmful. She squatted down and reached out to take the Buddha statue. In an instant, the Buddha statue emitted a golden light and rushed towards Tangua. She smiled and dispersed it. When the worried little ghosts saw this scene, they were very excited and floated around on the spot. Tangua reached out and picked up the Buddha statue. She looked at it carefully for a while and confirmed that it was indeed an orthodox Buddha statue to ward off evil spirits. It should have been left here by a Buddhist master. She wondered if the ancestors of this village had received the kindness of that Buddhist master, so they could have this. You're protecting the wrong person. Tangua said, as a Buddhist cultivator, you have protected this village for so many years. You have committed so many sins. You are guilty. I'll find another place for you. Tangua brought the Buddha statue to the fork in the road. She cut a hole in the tree branch and placed the Buddha statue on it. You should look at this evil road. You shouldn't be protecting the people in the village, but the innocent people who come in from the outside. She saw the Buddha statue flash. The golden light on its body actually retracted. The Buddha body that was originally made of copper slowly changed. In the blink of an eye, it merged with the tree trunk. The Buddha body turned from copper to wood. It looked like it grew on the tree trunk. No one would think that it was the Buddha statue just now. Benefactress is right. This poor monk is guilty. The Buddha statue opened its mouth to speak. Tangua wasn't surprised, but the system was. Was this possible? So this was a living Buddha statue. Chapter 805. This penniless monk did not know that a moment of benevolence back then had actually left behind a disaster here. It is this penniless monk's fault. The Buddha statue's face was expressionless. Back then, this penniless monk was injured by a demon and fled here. I was saved by the villagers, and before I left this Buddha statue behind to protect their safety. I didn't expect that this was a group of evil people. Yes. The Buddha statue sighed. Once this matter is settled, this penniless monk is willing to expiate all the wraiths here for 100 years and send them all into the cycle of reincarnation. I will also pray for their blessings in the next life. Tangua smiled. Master, you mean to say that you don't care about the people inside? You don't care about what will happen to them? I don't care, and I can't care. Female benefactor seems to be full of evil aura, but in fact, you have a strong power of merit protecting you, as well as a mysterious power that this penniless monk doesn't know about. Since I can't care about them, I might as well not care. Buddhist cultivator, you are really interesting. Tangua could not help but laugh. You know that you can't provoke me, so you don't provoke me. A wise man submits to circumstances. This sentence is known to the world. Female benefactor, since you have a strong power of merit protecting you, you are someone that this penniless monk cannot provoke. It's been a long time since I've seen a Buddhist cultivator who is so good at reading people's faces. Tangua turned to leave. Then it's a deal. Once this matter is settled, you will expiate their souls, help them gather their souls and send them into the cycle of reincarnation. A monk does not lie. Tangua did not say anything more to the Buddhist cultivator and turned to return to the village. When the little ghosts saw her coming back, they quickly surrounded her with reverence in their eyes. That Buddhist cultivator will not protect this village anymore. What do you want to do? Go now. all of this is his sin. After you have taken your revenge, he will expiate your souls and send you into the cycle of reincarnation. He will promise you a good next life as compensation. When the little ghosts heard this, they looked at Tangwa pitifully. They were souls and could not cry at all, but from their expressions, one could see that they were grateful and touched. They hesitated for a moment before asking, "Can we really take revenge?" "Of course, with me here, there won't be any accidents. Back then, it was the one who harmed you. You can go find whoever you want. There's no need to be polite. None of the people here are innocent." The little ghosts became excited. They bowed to Tangwa, then turned around and went to find their enemy. There were also some little ghosts who did not go in. They said, "Our enemies are all dead, and their descendants are basically extinct. Who asked the men here to be single for the rest of their lives? All these years, even though many people have bought wives, they still haven't given birth to a son for them. Perhaps this is retribution." In fact, the moment the Buddha statue was taken away by Tangwa, the resentment of the entire village had already boiled. They surrounded the village, causing the entire village to be filled with a gloomy aura. Even ordinary people would know that there was a problem when they saw such a village and would definitely not enter. Tangwa was sitting on the roof of a house. It was the house where Ji Yufei used to stay. Little Ghost, who didn't take revenge, was sitting beside her, his eyes full of admiration. They were thinking in their hearts, could this be the Ghost King in the legends? Otherwise, how could she not be afraid of the Buddha statue? In short, they were very impressed with her. "Where do you plan to go in the future?" Tangwa's lips curved. "I don't know." "Oh, can we follow you?" The little ghosts looked at her expectantly. Chapter 806. Why are you following me? Tangwa asked curiously. "That Buddhist cultivator has promised to send you to reincarnation and help you purify the murderous aura in your soul. You will definitely have a good life in your next life. The next life is the next life. Are we still us without our memories? We are already another person." Tangwa did not expect such an answer. "Then you can think about it again. In this world, there were indeed ghost cultivators. These little ghosts were not willing to reincarnate, so it was not bad for them to cultivate. Once they became ghost cultivators, they would be considered to have entered the path of cultivation. Even ghost hunters would not easily make enemies with ghost cultivators. Ghost cultivators had many tricks up their sleeves. Without deep hatred, no one was willing to provoke them. After a while, all kinds of frightened and miserable screams came from many rooms in the village. The frightened voices belonged to women, and the miserable screams belonged to men. Tangwa looked at the crescent moon in the sky. The little ghosts beside her were also very curious. They imitated her and looked up at the crescent moon in a daze. All night, the village was filled with all kinds of miserable screams. Many men ran out of their houses, but they were still entangled by the little ghosts. Perhaps they were imitating Tangwa. Before they killed those men, they would always help them remember how they died in their hands. By dawn, half of the men in the village had died. Those numb women hid in their houses and did not dare to come out. Even those men who were not avenged did not dare to come out. After witnessing the scene last night, they were also afraid. I wonder when the ghost hunters will come. These people only dared to come out when the sun rose. Looking at the corpses lying around, they felt their hair stand on end. If it were not for the rising sun, they would not have dared to come out. It should be soon. I hope they come sooner. This time, no one in the village doubted the existence of ghosts. Let's go get more black dog blood and boy urine. Let's all stay in the same house tonight. Tangwa was still sitting on the roof, watching them discuss. A group of little ghosts surrounded her. Previously, when Tangua told them that they would not be afraid of the sun if they sat beside her, they were still a little skeptical. But now, they did not doubt her at all. Amitba. Karma is the cycle of karma. Since you have taken revenge, you can go over there. That Buddhist cultivator will not hurt you. Tangua pointed to a place far away. You should still remember that intersection. The Buddhist cultivator is on the tree. Most of the little ghosts were still willing to be reincarnated. They bowed to Tangua and floated over. When they approached the tree, their souls involuntarily floated into the Buddha statue. Compared to the piercing pain they felt when they approached the Buddha statue, this time, they only felt a gentle power. It was so comfortable that they wanted to sleep it. There were still a few little ghosts left beside Tangua. Are you really not going? She asked. Tangua thought about what she was going to do next. It's not bad to have a few subordinates to order around. You can also go under the tree to cultivate. He will not chase you away. The little ghosts obtained the cultivation method. They bowed to Tangua and floated to the Buddha statue happily. Chapter 807. Afternoon, the villagers dealt with the corpses and looked at the setting sun worriedly. Tangua sneered. They also have times when they are afraid. They're here, they're here. The ghost-catching priest is here, someone shouted from outside the village. Then, Tangua saw 3 people walk into the village. One of them was a young man in a Taoist robe, and the other was a girl who was not even 20 years old. She was Ning Xiangxi, and the last one was Senwazi from the village. His face was full of excitement. This little Taoist is very capable. The villagers instinctively noticed Ning Xiangxi first. Their blatant gazes made Ning Xiangxi a little uncomfortable. She pursed her lips and said, "You people, don't even think about it. We're just here to stop the ghosts from doing evil." When they found out that half of the villagers had died last night, their expressions were very serious. Especially Ning Xiangxi. Hadn't the village chief and the human traffickers been caught? Why wouldn't she let these people go? She also hated these people, but she hated ghosts even more. Because of her special constitution, she had attracted ghosts since she was young. If she hadn't met an expert, who was Fang Yunqi's master, she would have been eaten by ghosts long ago. Therefore, she was biased against ghosts. Even if she knew that the villagers weren't good people, she still wanted to lock them up in prison. But she felt that the ghosts here needed to be dealt with, especially the evil ghost that killed people last night. "Brother Fang, that ghost saved me before. Capture her, but don't hurt her. Just send her to the temple and let her wake up. As for the other evil spirits, don't let them go. When I was in danger, only she helped me. I'm repaying her kindness. I don't want to owe others." She seems to be clear-headed and different from those evil spirits. If she really watched Fang Yunqi kill Tangua, she would feel very guilty. After all, Tangua was her savior. Even if she hated ghosts, she would feel very guilty. "Okay." Fang Yunqi replied. He didn't kill ghosts when he met them. Most of the time, when they caught ghosts, they were more willing to send them to the temple to be reformed. Of course, evil spirits were excluded. Basically, when they met evil spirits and malicious ghosts, they would kill them. In the past, he would always go out with his master. This time, his master was in seclusion and he was familiar with Ning Xiangxi. He heard that there was a ghost here. It did not seem to be very strong, so he came with his outfit. When Tangua heard this, she did not care. The little ghosts would not appear again. Even if Fang Yunqi wanted to destroy ghosts, he would need ghosts. Of course, she would still appear. At midnight, Fong Yunqi, Ning Xiangxi, and everyone else in the village gathered in a room. The village originally had close to 100 people, but now there were less than 100 left. Thinking back to what had happened last night, many people had lingering fear. You don't have to be afraid. With me here, that malicious spirit won't harm you, Fong Yunqi said. At this moment, the door was pushed open. Fong Yunqi gripped his peachwood sword and stared at the door with a serious expression. When Tang Guo walked in, he froze for a moment. Tang Guo was wearing a sports skirt and a pair of white shoes. This was the clothes that the original owner was wearing when she died. No one burned new clothes for the original owner, so she could only wear this. Little Daoist, Tang Guo said with a smile, I advise you to leave this place. Don't care about the people here. Those who died deserved it. They took more than one life. So, this is the reason why you killed them. Fong Yunqi frowned. Chapter 808. Tang Guo replied, Yes, I was killed by them too. Why can't I take revenge? Ask Ning Xiangxi what happened to her here. Ning Xiangxi's expression changed. Her experience here had almost become a nightmare. You've already taken your revenge. Why don't you leave? Ning Xiangxi asked. Those who harmed you have already received their retribution. You should leave too. Little girl, aren't you here to help us catch ghosts? Why are you letting her go now? Ning Xiangxi frowned. She wants to kill the people in your village because they killed her. She also saved me. I definitely won't kill her. The reason why I'm here is because there are other evil spirits here. After all, the women and children in the village are innocent. Brother Fong, bring her to the temple, Ning Xiangxi said. Ning Xiangxi said that no matter what, he had saved her life. She couldn't just watch as his soul dissipated. Fong Yunqi nodded. Okay. He took a step forward and took out a gourd. Are you coming in willingly, or do you want me to do it? Little Daoist, with that little bit of cultivation of yours, it's nothing in front of me. Tang Guo's figure appeared in front of Fong Yunqi. Before he could react, the gourd that was used to store ghosts fell into Tang Guo's hands. You want to store me with a broken gourd? Dream on. With that, she pinched the gourd lightly. Under Fong Yunqi's incredulous gaze, the gourd exploded. Fong Yunqi's face paled. He held the peachwood sword and rushed towards Tang Guo. In an instant, the peachwood sword was in Tang Guo's hands. I'm really not afraid of this. Tang Guo smiled. She broke the peachwood sword. Little Daoist, you can't do this. She looked arrogant and vile, which infuriated Fong Yunqi. That was his beloved peachwood sword. He had no choice but to take out the ghost-catching talisman that his master had given him. Unfortunately, before he could chant the talisman, it was snatched away by Tang Guo. She smiled and tore the talisman into pieces in front of him. I'm not afraid of talismans either. Fong Yunqi felt dizzy. He immediately used all the methods that he had learned and all the tools that he had brought to catch ghosts. However, none of them worked on Tang Guo. Fong Yunqi wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and looked at the smiling Tang Guo with fear. She may be a ghost king. Even if my master comes, he may not be able to deal with her. She is not an ordinary ghost at all. When the villagers heard this, despair appeared on their faces. All right, you finished your performance. It's my turn now. From the very beginning, Tang Guo had no intention of letting the villagers off. You're not allowed to kill anymore, Ning Xiangxi shouted. The remaining people didn't kill anyone. But they are accomplices, Tang Guo said. Ning Xiangxi pursed her lips. He doesn't deserve death. Alright, then I don't want their lives. Tangua took a step back and looked at the burly men with her beautiful eyes. In order to stop you from continuing to persecute young girls, you should castrate yourselves. If you turn yourselves into eunuchs, I'll spare your lives. Under the moonlight and light, the way she smiled as she said these words really made her look like a demon. She was scary and beautiful. However, in the eyes of the villagers, she was a demon. Little Daoist, this female ghost is really too evil. Please take her in. All of us in the village will kneel before you. Chapter 809. Fong Yunqi looked bitter. It wasn't that he didn't want to take them, but he couldn't deal with them. I think it's best to kill them. Ning Xiangxi heard this and quickly said, just listen to her and castrate them yourselves. She didn't like these stinky men either. Castration was better than losing their lives. Tang Guo looked at Ning Xiangxi and said, you don't have to persuade them. If they don't listen, I'll kill them. From then on, there will be fewer disasters in this world. This sinful village should have been destroyed. She glanced at the terrified men and the numb women. At this moment, these women were looking at her with evil eyes and the children who were glaring at her. If you don't come, I'll kill them all. Not a single one will be left alive. What are you still thinking about? Hurry up and do it. We can't deal with her. If you want to live, do it. At this moment, Ning Xiangxi understood. She felt that this female ghost really wanted to kill everyone in the village. This was simply a ferocious ghost. However, they couldn't stop her at all. If she castrated the men, she would feel a little better. These men deserved it. However, she couldn't just watch the other party kill the entire village. Ah! At this moment, a man screamed. Ning Xiangxi turned around and looked at the man whose neck had been broken. Her face turned red. Let them think about it. After all, it's not so easy to make a decision. She didn't know how ridiculous it sounded when she said that. Tangua took back the white silk. My weight is limited. From now on, I'll kill one every 10 minutes. I'll start with the men. If they don't do anything, I'll kill them all. The Buddha statue on the tree outside shook his head and didn't stop her. He smiled bitterly and closed his eyes, continuing to release the souls of the little ghosts around him. Another 10 minutes passed. Finally, someone made a move. It was a woman. She took a pair of scissors and when the man beside her wasn't paying attention, she cut him. The man covered his lower body and screamed in pain. You, Dunzi, don't blame me. I don't want you to die. This family needs a man. We still have a son. He's still young. I can't watch him be killed by the female ghost. The woman's face was a little ferocious. I'll apply the medicine for you right away. Tangua glanced at the woman. Under her worried eyes, there was a hint of pleasure. Who said that they were completely numb? At the crucial moment, their minds were very clear. After this case, the room was filled with screams. Almost all of them were done by the woman, cutting off her man's manhood. Soon, only the men were left, and their faces were filled with pain. All right, are you done now? Ning Xiangxi said. Fong Yunqi's face was ashen. I can't take you today, but one day, you will be taken by a fellow Daoist with a higher cultivation base. At this moment, footsteps were heard from outside. Almost in the blink of an eye, a young man in a Daoist robe appeared at the door. Tangua subconsciously turned around and met his eyes. Instantly, she felt a familiar soul fluctuation. She couldn't help but smile at the person who came. That pure smile stunned the young Daoist who came to the door. Soon, he realized that this was a female ghost with a high cultivation base. Senior Qin. Fong Yunqi almost jumped up in excitement and hurriedly greeted him. Chapter 8:10. Senior Qin, there's a Ghost King level ghost causing trouble here. I'd like to trouble you to subdue her. Tanghua nodded and smiled. Oh, so you're here to catch ghosts too? No. Qin Jiu shook his head, and a deep look flashed across his eyes. The image of the female ghost smiling at him earlier appeared in his mind. That smile gave him the feeling that she knew him. However, he clearly remembered that he did not know this female ghost. Senior Qin, this female ghost has done many evil things. You must subdue her. Just now, she almost massacred the entire village, Fong Yunqi said anxiously. He hurriedly told Qin Jiu everything that had happened, so, Senior Qin, you can't let her go. Qin Jiu did not show any disgust towards Tanghua because of these words. He also ignored Fong Yunqi and used his fingers to calculate. His eyes narrowed. Karma, I can't do anything about it. Qin. I don't want to do anything about it. I'm a Taoist who catches demons, not ghosts. Qin Jiu said seriously, this village's fate is their retribution. If I do anything about it, I'll have to accept the karma. It's not worth it. Senior Qin, after you subdue this female ghost, I'll definitely tell my master and have him pay you. Fong Yunqi suddenly remembered that Qin Jiu was famous in the circle for taking people's money. He would not do anything that would cause him a loss. He was also very cold. If he did not pay enough, he would watch you die. Thinking about it, Fong Yunqi's expression became ugly. I definitely won't trick Senior Qin. You should know my master. He's not someone who goes back on his words. No, I only catch demons, not ghosts. He glanced at the female ghost and calculated. It seemed that he could not win. Her soul was very strong and had a thick layer of virtue. He felt that it was more than that. Moreover, he liked this female ghost, so there was no need to fight with her. Fong Yunqi was disappointed. Tanghua was also surprised. This Taoist was quite interesting. Taoist, you're really not going to capture me. I said I'm not going to capture you. Why would I want to capture you? If he couldn't win, he would be beaten up, and he wouldn't get any money. In the end, his reputation would be ruined, and he might not be able to get any business in the future. No matter how he thought about it, it was not worth it. Tanghua seemed to have understood something from Fong Yunqi's words. This Taoist priest seems to be someone who takes money to get rid of disasters. He's the kind of person who only cares about money. She thought of the skeleton that was still hanging on the cliff and took out a bead. Taoist priest, help me with something and I'll give you this as a reward. Qin Jiu stared at the pearl and squinted his eyes. This pearl was not simple. There was a faint spiritual energy coming from it that made one feel comfortable. It was a good item. He didn't answer immediately and asked, "What's the matter?" Legend had it that beautiful female ghosts were the best at tricking people. There's nothing wrong with being careful. Can you help me collect the bones? Tanghua asked with a smile. Qin Jiu was stunned for a moment. He hadn't expected this, so he replied straightforwardly, yes. Tanghua threw the bead to Qin Jiu. You want to bring my bones back to my home. You should know what to do, right? I know. She had been thinking about how to bring the original owner's body back to her hometown. This Qin Jiu seemed more reliable than most people. It wasn't that she felt that this was a familiar soul, but this kind of person who took someone's money usually didn't care about the rules. They only cared about trust. As long as she paid enough, he would definitely do it well. Chapter 8:11. Are we just going to let her go like that? The villagers looked in the direction that Tanghua and Qinjiu had disappeared in, their faces filled with hatred. However, when they thought of what had happened, they were filled with fear. Ning Xiangxi turned around to glare at them. We can't beat her. If you want her to stay, go out and call for help. She didn't want to see the villagers die, but she still hated the people here. Fang Yunqi felt terrible. The things that he had brought had all been destroyed by the female ghost. He was filled with anger. Qinjiu followed behind Tanghua until they reached the edge of the cliff. My bones are right below. You should be able to float, right? I can float for a while, Qinjiu replied. Tanghua smiled and floated down. Qinjiu jumped down after her. Using the force of the cliff, he landed for a while and soon saw the white bones stuck in the cracks. He landed to the side and took out his sword. He stabbed it into the stone wall and stepped on the sword. He took out a sack and carefully picked up the bones. Be careful. Tanghua looked at the white bones and shook. Don't drop them. They are often blown by the wind in this place. If they fall, they will break easily. If they are not whole, they won't be pretty. Qinjiu, can a white bone be described as pretty? I know, Qinjiu quickly said. Don't worry. The price you paid is enough. I will help you do it properly. He was much more careful now, putting the bones into the sack one by one. Tanghua hung on a branch that stretched out from the cracks in the rocks. She held her chin. What's your name? What do you do? Qinjiu. Catching monsters for a living. Occasionally, I do a side job to help people. These days, there are fewer and fewer monsters. I finally met one, and it was a vegetarian. If I didn't do a side job, I wouldn't be able to survive. System, it's confirmed. It's that guy. He looked at his host, who was happily hanging on the branch. This Qinjiu gave his host a good first impression. He didn't start yelling at her. Therefore, he guessed that his host was going to start flirting with her cutie. Okay, I've picked them up and put them in the sack. Qinjiu wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and carefully held the sack. Are you going to bring them back to your hometown to bury them? Of course, I have to go home and have a look. The corpse had to be brought back. It couldn't be left on the cliff. Sooner or later, it would rot. Since she had accepted everything, the skeleton was also hers. Qinjiu asked again, after you're buried, are you going to reincarnate? No. According to the time, the original owner was destroyed in these few days. She estimated that she would have to stay here for another 20 years. If he reincarnated, he would go directly to the next world. She had only been here for a short period of time. There were still many things that she had yet to do. There were still some results that she was waiting to see. Become a ghost cultivator? That's right, your strength is strong, and it's a pity that you reincarnated. As a ghost cultivator, not many people can do anything to you. Qinjiu said. Tanghua smiled. You didn't agree with Fang Yunqi before because you thought you couldn't beat me, right? Qinjiu's body stiffened. With a serious expression, he said, of course not. I really only catch demons, not ghosts. It was true that he had never thought of catching her, much less now. This female ghost gave him a good impression, and now she was his employer. Qinjiu didn't care about anyone, but he was the boss when it came to paying. Before he finished his job, he definitely wouldn't go back on his word. In the circle, his reputation was very good. Tanghua took out a sword. I can't stay in the human world for long. Maybe 20 years. I'll use this sword to hire you. Chapter 8:12. Do you want it or not? Qin looked at the sword and was stunned. This was definitely not a spiritual artifact. Celestial artifact. Celestial artifact. Do you want it? Tangua's lips curled up. This fellow was so cute. He was so cute even though he loved money. She really liked him. Qin didn't hesitate at all. Yes. Anyway, he was going everywhere. Following a female ghost for 20 years was nothing. He could even get a celestial sword. He was sure that this was the only celestial sword in the human world. Here, it's for you. Tangua casually tossed the immortal sword to Qin. Qin hurriedly caught it and stared at it for a long time. Qin, you are now my employee. In these 20 years, you will have to help me do things. There are many things that are inconvenient for me and I will need you to do them. No problem. Qin quickly replied. She was the boss. He kept the sword. He would refine it when he was free. Do you want to go back to your house now? Tangua nodded and floated up. Qin floated up too. Now that they were familiar with each other, he started to talk more. How did you fall off the cliff? I came here with a few friends to play. In the end, we fell into the hands of the villagers. If I didn't run, I would have to give birth to their children and be trapped there forever. Tangua smiled. I wasn't familiar with the road. How could a little girl outrun them? I had no choice but to run up the mountain. When I reached here, they caught up. Compared to being caught, I jumped down without hesitation. Sometimes, isn't there more hope when you are alive? Tangua mocked. Look at the women in the village. Is that hope? It's numbness and assimilation. Isn't it good now? I took revenge and I am a powerful ghost. You can't beat me. Qin. He didn't want to argue with her. She looked young. Qin felt that this female ghost's identity wasn't so simple. She had the spiritual cultivation bead and the celestial sword. She must have had a great opportunity. According to his calculations, this village's retribution wouldn't come so soon. It would take at least 20 years. The only variable was this female ghost. However, he had previously calculated that this village's retribution was not over yet. The second retribution would be at the time he had calculated at the beginning. As for the rest, he had not divined it. It was impossible for him to completely see through the mysteries of heaven. Just like the variable in front of him. What's your name? My name is Tangua. Tangua told Qin her former home address according to her memory. But only by returning to that place would she be able to find her family. It had to be said that Qin was indeed very reliable. He quickly brought her back to that familiar yet unfamiliar city and to her home. Her family background was not bad, and she lived in one of the villas. They should have moved away. Qin comforted her. It's still easy to find someone now. Do you still remember their name, phone number, and so on? Yes. Tangua gave him 2 phone numbers. Qin took out his phone and made a call. Hello. Hello, are you Mr. Tang? Yes. Qin quickly told him what had happened. The other side fell into silence for a while. Then, he arranged a time to meet with Qin to discuss the issue of Tangua's burial. When Tangua heard the silence on the other side of the phone, she knew that something was wrong. Qin brought Tangua to an unfamiliar address. Looking at the even more luxurious villa in front of him, he wasn't surprised. After all, Tangua's family background was very good. After contacting Mr. Tang, he was invited into the villa by the servants. Chapter 8:13. Father Tang came down the stairs and looked at Qinzhou. Seeing that he was wearing a Daoist robe, he asked, "Are you Daoist Qin?" Qinzhou stood up and nodded. "That's me." Father Tang looked around. "Where are my daughter's bones now?" His tone was calm. It was not what Qinzhou had expected. Father Tang did not seem to care about Tanggua's life or death. Qinzhou's smile faded a little. "They're buried somewhere else. You can't just bring them in like that, right?" "That's true." Father Tang sat on the sofa. "How much do you want?" "I'll get someone to buy a grave. When the time comes, I'll have to trouble Daoist Qin to bring her there and bury her." Qinzhou glanced at Tanggua and hesitated for a moment. "Just a simple burial. What else do you want?" Qinzhou frowned. "Tanggua's death was unjust. We need to release her soul and set up a mourning hall at home to welcome her back." "Mr. Qin, don't you think you're being too hasty?" Actually, Qinzhou said all this on purpose. Father Tang did not seem to care about Tanggua's return at all. "Set up a mourning hall at home." A woman's voice came from upstairs. A beautiful woman carrying a baby walked down. "Impossible. How can we do something so unlucky at home?" "Hubby," the woman shouted at Father Tang. "Our son was just born. How can we set up a mourning hall? What if the yin energy gets to him?" "This is?" Qinzhou asked. "My wife." Father Tang quickly helped the woman to the sofa and patted her shoulder comfortingly. "Don't worry. I'll just get someone to buy a grave for her. I'll leave everything to Mr. Qin. We won't set up a mourning hall at home." Qinzhou's heart sank. He subconsciously looked at Tanggua, only to find her smiling from the side. In the end, she floated behind him and said softly, "This woman isn't my mother. Help me find out what happened in the past few years. As for the bones, take them away. There's no need to leave them here." Then, she floated to the television with a smile on her face. Seeing this smile, Qinzhou did not feel good. He wasn't even willing to give her a welcome ceremony. He didn't know if she would be disappointed. "I don't think this is Tanggua's biological mother." When the woman heard this, she said angrily, "Daoist priest, do you know how to speak? Do I look that old? Then I need to inform Tanggua's mother. She has the right to know about this." The woman's expression didn't look too good. Father Tang said, "After Xiaogua's accident, her mother accidentally died in a car accident while looking for her. Let's go, Qinzhou." Qinzhou nodded slightly and stood up. "Sorry to disturb you, Mr. Tang. Daoist priest, you haven't told me how much you want to pay for Xiaogua's funeral." "Indeed, we can't do those unlucky things in this house. My son has just been born." Qinzhou said coldly, "Since Mr. Tang doesn't welcome her, I can only take her to another place to bury her." With that, he left without looking back. Father Tang didn't ask him to stay. The woman beside him pursed her lips. "Hubby, what does he mean?" "Nothing." Father Tang smiled carelessly and touched his son in the woman's arms. "How can a dead person compare to a living one?" The woman looked in Qinzhou's direction and smiled deeply. "Yes, how could a dead person compare to a living one?" Tanggua saw this woman's strange smile and fell into deep thought. "I'll pick a place with good feng shui for you," Qinzhou said as they walked on the street. "What kind of place do you like?" "Cemeteries are very expensive. I still have some savings." Chapter 8:14. After spending 3 days, Qinzhou calculated the location of a cemetery with good feng shui. Of course, the price was not cheap. After knowing the price, he did not hesitate and bought the cemetery and buried Tangua's body. Knowing that Tangua was not a normal ghost, he did not send her soul to the afterlife. He just buried her in the ground. You're really generous. That's a few $100,000. Daoist Chin, you don't seem to be stingy. Tangua sat on her tombstone and swung her legs, smiling as she spoke to Chinjo. I don't lack money in the mortal world. Even if I lack money, I can earn it back by taking 2 jobs. You gave me the immortal sword, so of course I have to do these things for you. Chinjo said seriously, after looking for a few days, this cemetery has the best feng shui in the city. It's warm in the winter and cool in the summer. If you want to live here in the future, it'll be good for cultivation. Tangua held her chin and watched as Chinjo placed a bouquet of flowers in front of the tombstone. Daoist Chin is quite ostentatious. Who did you learn to give flowers to? Aren't they all like this? Chinjo subconsciously said. Don't you like these flowers? Which one do you like? I'll buy it for you. It's quite good. Tangua hooked her finger and the bouquet of flowers fell into her hand. She sniffed it and said, the flowers will wither in a while. Elder Chin, I don't lack money or flowers. What I lack now is beautiful clothes. Chinjo was stunned. Tangua pointed to her white shoes and sports dress. These clothes are from 3 years ago. They're outdated and don't look good. Take me to buy some new clothes. What Chinjo wanted to say was that even if the clothes were not nice, outdated, and old, when worn by this female ghost, they could not hide her beauty. Of course, he did not need to say these words to her. He did not want her to laugh at him. All right. Chinjo looked at this beautiful female ghost and her old clothes. He felt pity for her. Then I'll take you to a big mall. You can choose whatever you like. He thought that the immortal sword in exchange for 20 years of service was a great deal. Therefore, he wanted to treat this beautiful female ghost better. In the past, she was a lonely ghost. Now, she was a female ghost who could not return to her home. Thinking about it, she was indeed a little pitiful. Sure. Tangua floated down and followed beside Chinjo. Chinjo hailed a taxi and asked the driver to drive them to the mall. 10 minutes later, the man and the ghost arrived at the mall. They went straight to the women's wear section. It was Chinjo's first time coming to this place. In the resting area, there were many men waiting. Most of the women were happily trying on clothes. It was indeed very eye-catching for someone like him to stare at women's clothing and wear a Daoist robe while walking among countless women. However, Chinjo was already used to these gazes. No matter how they looked at him, whenever he saw that Tangua liked something, he would immediately go over and take the one that fit her size. In just 10 minutes, he was already holding 10 beautiful clothes in his hands, which attracted the attention of the salesperson. Sir, are all the clothes here for purchase? Yes. Chinjo's face didn't turn red and his heart didn't skip a beat. He nodded very seriously. Give me a basket. I still want to buy a lot. I can't even carry all of them in my hands. Ah. All right, please wait for a moment. When the salesperson turned and left, her face was still filled with shock. She had worked here for many years and had seen many men buy women's clothes. Most of them were gifts for their girlfriends. Chapter 8:15. But this man was a Daoist priest, and he had chosen the latest designs. The designs were all pretty good. He did not have the taste of a straight man. Most importantly, he had so much in his hands, and even said that he wanted to buy a lot. He could not fit all of them. The surrounding girls also looked at Chinjo, who was seriously choosing clothes. They looked at their boyfriends in the resting area, and their faces fell. If I had known, I would have found a Taoist priest as my boyfriend. That's right. Her taste in clothes is even better than ours. Look at our boyfriends. They've only been to 3 or 4 shopping malls, and they look like they have nothing left to live for. Look at the handsome Taoist priest. He's good-looking and bought a lot. He's the perfect boyfriend. Qin Jiao heard those words, but he did not care. Tang Gua could not help but laugh. Taoist priest, they all want to be your girlfriend. I'm only interested in catching demons. I'm not interested in women, Qin Jiao said seriously, and slowly put the clothes into the basket. Tang Gua smiled as she floated around him. Is that so? Then you're going to lose your job. There are fewer and fewer demons now, and there aren't many evil demons anymore. That's 20 years later, Qin Jiao said with a smile. In these 20 years, I won't lose my job. Even if I lose my job, it won't be a loss. Tang Gua knew that he was talking about the cultivation spiritual bead and the immortal sword, and did not continue the topic. This guy only wanted to catch demons in this world. If you're not interested in women, then are you interested in female ghosts? Qin Jiao heard that, and his hands trembled. He raised his head to look at the smiling female ghost. What do you mean? Tang Gua floated in front of him. It means exactly what I said. I'm a female ghost. Taoist priest, do you want to have a human ghost romance? No, forget it. I still only like catching demons. Qin Jiao quickly shook his head, but her words echoed in his mind many times. What was this female ghost saying? She wanted to have a ghost romance with him. Tang Gua looked regretful. Is Taoist priest not interested in me? I only catch demons, Qin Jiao said. Hurry up and choose. What else do you like? It's rare for you to come to the shopping mall. Taoist priest, you didn't deny your interest in me. Love between humans and ghosts will not end well. Qin Jiao's expression turned serious. Even if you are a ghost cultivator, in the future, I will go to the immortal realm, and you will go to the ghost realm. People of different paths cannot work together. Oh, that's really a pity, Tang Gua smiled. Indeed, I will only stay in this place for 20 years. If something really happened between you and me, it would be a little cruel to leave you alone in this world after 20 years. Those who stay behind will suffer even more. Tang Gua noticed that Qin Jiao was frowning as if he was thinking about something. She interrupted him, Taoist Qin, I'm just joking with you. Hurry up and help me choose some clothes. Later, when you go to my grave, burn them for me. Okay. Qin Jiao came back to his senses and hesitated for a moment. Are you really joking? I was just joking. Did you take it seriously? Tang Gua asked in surprise. Taoist Qin, you can't be tempted by me, right? After all, I'm so beautiful. It's not strange for you to fall head over heels for me. Qin Jiao almost dropped the basket. Hurry up and see if there's anything you like. Stop joking with me. She said it so seriously that he almost took it seriously. As expected, in this world, the more beautiful a woman was, the better she was at speaking nonsense. No, the one in front of him was a ghost, so what she said was nonsense. Chapter 8:16. Tang Gua floated around and picked out many beautiful clothes. In the end, Qin Jiao brought all the clothes back to the grave and burned them for her. There were dozens of sets in total, as well as all sorts of beautiful shoes. Qin Jiao stood in front of Tang Gua's grave and looked at her sitting on the tombstone, her clothes and shoes constantly changing. She looked so happy that he couldn't help but smile. Taoist Qin, does this look good? Yes. What about this one? Yes. What about this one? They all look good. Tangwa, Daoish Chin, do you only know how to use the word good to describe it? Chin Jiu smiled. I'm speaking the truth. It really does look good. System, dear host, allow me to interrupt. Chin Jiu is a straight man. If he says it looks good, then it should be true. I feel that using the word good to describe it is not wrong. Tangwa giggled. System, you're a straight system too, right? System, he shouldn't have interrupted. Tangwa put on all the clothes and finally chose the one she thought looked the best. She floated to Chinjo's side. Daoish Chin, help me investigate the cause of my mother's death. Chinjo's expression became more serious. Okay. The next day, Chinjo used the clues he got from Tangwa and interviewed many people who knew her mother to understand the cause and effect of the car accident. I remember that it was 3 years ago. Tangwa said that she went on a vacation and never came back. At that time, Song Xiaoyun was looking for her everywhere. Later on, she even asked Tangwa's classmates. She only knew that they partied at a very remote place. She said goodbye to us hurriedly and said that she was going to look for her. Not long after, I heard that she died in a car accident. I heard that the Tang family also went to look for her, but they couldn't find her. They also called the police. There hasn't been any news for 3 years. Tangwa said beside Chinjo. Ask her how long after my mother's accident my father remarried. Chinjo asked accordingly. The woman's expression became slightly strange. She said softly, not long, about 2 months. At that time, I heard that the woman was pregnant, but she died in an accident. Little Taoist priest, let me tell you. At that time, the death of that woman's child was very strange. The Tang family moved because of that incident. The woman said in a low voice, I saw that you're a Taoist priest and don't look like a bad person. I used to have a good relationship with Song Xiaoyun. She helped me a lot when I was in trouble. Since you're asking me about this, you must have something in mind, right? Chinjo nodded. I was asked by someone to investigate the truth. All right then, I'll only tell you about this matter. The woman looked around. In fact, no one was paying attention to her at all. She still looked around carefully before she spoke. There's something strange about the villa where the family used to live. After that woman and child died, I accidentally found out about it. Later, they hired a ghost hunter and said that there was something unclean inside. Not long after, they moved out. That villa hasn't been sold yet. Every time someone went to ask around, they heard that a Taoist priest had been there, but they weren't willing to buy it. That's all I know. Little Taoist priest, I suspect that the thing that appeared in the villa is very likely Xiaoyun's ghost. If you're really capable, you should go and take a look. Maybe you can find something. At that time, I always wondered why Xiaoyun got into trouble so easily. She has always been a careful and vigilant person, but... The woman smiled. As an outsider, I can't care so much. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.